he can't even talk about this stuff without being like, I do everything so good and Charlie loved me, you know? In order for him to make a coherent case here, he has to literally elevate Charlie's status above himself, and he literally cannot do that. In order to successfully create the martyrdom narrative, he has to make it seem as though Charlie is a more valuable person than he is, and he is physically incapable of doing that. Donald Trump is now doing the Charlie Kirk event, a posthumous
able to fight people,
Medal of Honor being given to Charlie Kirk.
He loved those enemies so much. You know, I heard he loved his enemies, and I said, wait a minute, is that the same Charlie that I know? I'm not sure, but I didn't want to get into it. But it was a horrible, heinous, demonic act of murder. He was assassinated in the prime of his life for boldly speaking the truth, for living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk, our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you. As you know, only hours ago I returned from a very historic trip to secure peace in the Middle East. People said that couldn't be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Thank you very much. But I raced back halfway around the globe. I was going to call Erica and say, Erica, could you maybe move it to Friday? And I didn't have the courage to call. But you know why I didn't call? Because I heard today was Charlie's birthday. And I said, you know, that was a definite. And I said, we're going to have to forget about some of those very big, very rich countries that expected me to be there. And I can tell you, based on the length of that flight, I wouldn't want to go back tomorrow.
For Charlie.
But I would not have missed this moment for anything in the world. Nothing. And it's a very important time for our country, and our country is doing so well. It's never done better. We are a country with almost now $18 trillion of investment coming in. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Previous administration had less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We have more than 18, it'll be much more than 20 by the time the year, more than $20 trillion. There's never been a country in the world that had anything like that. What's happened to our country is incredible in a short period of time. Charlie was a big person for, sir, could we close up those borders, please, a little bit? You know.
Yeah, he loved everything that I was doing and hated everything that I wouldn't do.
But you know, it came out last 4 months. Literally nobody was allowed into our country, and the only people that were allowed in were people that came in legally. The borders are absolutely stone cold closed, and they reported 0, 0, 0, and 0, so that's pretty good. But he was a big believer. He wanted people in the country more than I did, frankly. He wanted them to come in legally, and he got his wish. October 14th is Charlie's birthday, and he should have been turning 32 years old. I tell you, when I first met him, he was like 22, and I said, boy, he's awfully young, but I thought he was older than that, you know.
We're back to the self-suck chatters. You already know.
That's not good when you're old, but when you're young, it's great. He had the best of all things, but he was special. But instead, Charlie is attaining a far more important milestone. We're
people are over Charlie.
His name forever into the eternal roster of true American heroes. He's a true American hero, an amazing person, way, way beyond his years. And I'm honored to be joined by a woman who has endured unspeakable hardship with unbelievable strength, and that's Charlie's widow, Erica. And I just want to thank you, Erica. He loved you so much. I was with him before I met Erica, and he told me he was going to get married. He said, you won't believe how beautiful she is. I said, well, then now that I meet her, he's right. But then he also said, and you know what?
Fuck?
She's like the smartest person I know. See, they do go together on occasion. Not often. Not often. But on occasion they go together. But he was in love with you. He was deeply in love with you. It's great. Erica, your love and courage have been an inspiration to all of us, and We will always be here for you, and we're always going to be here for your gorgeous, beautiful children. And we'll never forget what your family has sacrificed for our country. Man loved our country. When things were going badly for our country, he was so, as you know, angry. He would get angry because he said it doesn't have to be that way. We're also pleased to be joined by an incredible group of Charlie's friends, very powerful friends, actually, and some not so powerful, and they're actually better people, okay? I know them all. They're the less powerful ones. I have to tell you that, all of you power guys down here, the best ones in the group are the ones that are less successful, but that happens too. No, they're all great, and they're here. Charles James Kirk was a visionary and one of the greatest figures of his generation. He was truly an amazing figure, and growing leaps and bounds. He knew that the fight to preserve our heritage is waged not only on the battlefield and in the halls of power, of which we have tremendous power here, including the head of a place called war. We call it now war. We had defense. We had our Secretary of Defense. Now we have a Secretary of War. And somehow I think it's more emblematic, and hopefully we'll never have to use war. But the fact that we're ready is very good. Peace through strength is very important. But also in the hearts of our nation's youth, that's where Charlie rode strongest. At age 18, that insight inspired Charlie to found the organization that ultimately touched the lives of millions and millions of people, and so many young people that nobody's ever seen anything like it, frankly. Turning Point USA. It's amazing, and it's actually bigger now. It's become bigger in the last few weeks than Charlie ever thought. I think his end vision in many years from now would have been just a fraction of what it turned out to be in a couple of weeks, right? It's amazing. With hard work and joyful spirit and endless enthusiasm and determination. And he did have great enthusiasm. You know, I always say you need enthusiasm to be successful. He had great enthusiasm. Charlie grew Turning Point into the largest conservative youth organization in the entire country. He forged a personal bond with countless young conservatives. He fought for free speech, religious liberty, strong borders, and a very strong and proud America. In everything he did, he put America first. He really put America first. And ultimately, Charlie became more than a leader of an important organization. He became the leader of historic movements all over the country. There were movements, individual movements, one movement, but it was historic. Everything he did was historic, and a true evangelist for the cause of freedom and the word of Almighty God. God was very important to Charlie. He would say, you know, if you don't have religion, you're not going to have a strong country. It's true. He was so wise beyond his years. You know, I talk to him sometimes and say, this guy is like a young guy. He was really a wise man. From the time Charlie worked on my presidential campaign in 2016, and he was there right from the beginning. He liked me. I don't know. I have no idea why. What the hell was he thinking? He said, you're going to win, sir. I said, you know, I'm running against 17 senators and a lot of tough people and governors. We have all these people. And he said, no, you're going to win, sir. He said, not going to be close. And he made it happen. He helped make it happen, I'll tell you that. Without him, who knows what would be. Maybe you'd have Kamala standing here today. That would not be good. I will tell you, Javier, you don't know who Kamala is. Promise, it would not be good. You agree with that, Howard? He also mobilized countless citizens to go vote. It's called Go Vote. Very simple. And with his help in 2024, we won more young people than any Republican by far in the history of our country. And we won the popular vote. We won the swing states, all 7 of them. Remember, they said, oh, well, if Trump could win 4, that would be nice. I win 7 by a lot, by a landslide. But the popular vote was massive. And we won the Electoral College. Remember, they said, well, it's going to be very hard. I'd say 270. Well, we got 312 to 226. And then we won something called districts and councils and different things. But in one case, we won 2,750 to 525. That's the one where you see the map is almost entirely red, except they have a little blue line on one side and a little blue line. meaning New York and a little bit Los Angeles. And I have a feeling that if the vote were 100%, we would have won that too. You want to know the truth. But he knew, and he knew very well, and he also understood honesty, and he was always concerned with honesty. He said the only way we can lose is if the cheating gets so bad, and that's where we came up with a little phrase, too big to rig. We said, go out and vote. Just go out and vote. And we had that. Remember, we used to say that all the time because people would say, oh, they're going to win. We don't have to vote. Let's go to a movie. We'll come home and watch later. And he wasn't about that. So we come up to, together, we came up with that phrase, we got to make it too big. I never made a speech where I didn't say at the end, now look, the polls are showing good. Don't believe the polls. He said, we're going to make it, Susie, right? Too big to rig. So if you think we're going to win by a lot, doesn't matter. Pretend we're losing. You got to go out and vote. They voted. And at 9:02, the whole thing was over, right? 9:02. Remember they said, oh, this could go a few days. Well, it went a few minutes. 9:02. And he knew that. And I felt it, but he knew it. He knew it. I think he knew it more than anybody. But Charlie never missed an opportunity to remind us of the Judeo-Christian principles of our nation's founding or to share his deep Christian faith. In his final moments, Charlie testified to the greatness of America and to the glory of our Savior, with whom he now rests in heaven. And he is going to make heaven. I said, I'm not sure I can make it, but he's going to make it. He's there. He's looking down on us right now. It's so incredible. Look at this, how this turned out. This was supposed to be so dark and cloudy. Not dark and cloudy, is it? Look at that, how beautiful that is. There's no artist that can capture it as beautiful as it is today. Wow. It's amazing.
Wow.
As I said, on the day that he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for truth and for freedom. And from Socrates to think, and to St. Peter, from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King, those who change history the most, and he really did.
I can't stand the fact that they compare him to
causes
MLK, especially because he has routinely shit on MLK.
He didn't want to waste
Charlie
time.
Kirk has straight up said horrible things about Martin Luther King Jr., and now they're comparing him to Martin Luther King Jr. as in the affirmative.
But he almost, I guess, didn't have the time.
I don't even know if he would like that, personally. Like, what are we talking about?
I classroom for 4 years listening to people teach me liberal principles, because they were never going to teach him that anyway. But he didn't have the time. He really didn't have the time. But every time the enemies of goodness and virtue tried to silence the voice of righteous and noble leaders like Charlie, they failed. They seem to fail ultimately. They look like they're doing well.
Once this is over, we'll talk about the political piece. But it's like obvious to me that they're trying to keep this alive to the best of their ability, and they're failing to do so because in this day and age, it's very difficult to keep people's attention on one thing and one thing only. That's number one. And number two,
so today, like,
it's not only very difficult to keep people's attention on one singular focus, one singular news story, and secondly, like, a lot of people obviously didn't really like him. A lot of people also had their, their negative associations with him. I mean, this has on Fox News has 34,000 live viewers, like, as opposed to the previous, WWE style funeral proceedings that took place. Like, people have moved on from it already.
And with great love. I mean, I read so many stories about some of the enemies, but I watch the enemies, and it's hard for them to speak badly about them because they just don't. And then you do have people in the days since Charlie's killing, we've seen exactly why our country so dearly needed his example. We've watched legions of far-left radicals resort to desperate acts of violence and terror because they know that their ideas and arguments are persuading no one. They know that they're failing. They have the devil's ideology, and they're failing, and they know it. They feel it, and they become violent. They seem to become very violent on the left. They've rammed vehicles into federal law enforcement, fired sniper rifles at ICE agents, and me, But I made a turn at a good time. I turned to the right. Charlie couldn't believe it, actually. He said, how the hell did you make that turn? I said, I don't know. But fired rifles and threatened the lives of our Supreme Court justices, our great justices. They have to be protected. We just issued A lot of money, $60 million to protect the Supreme Court justices. Very important. We can't let anything happen. In places of worship, we're protecting our people. We've seen that a candidate for Attorney General in Virginia boasted that he would want to see the Republican legislature, a legislator in Virginia, shot in the head and to see his children murdered. He actually said this. And now he continues to run for office, and most people continue to back him, but he said he wants his man shot. He said shot in the head and to see his children murdered. And they keep running. Pretty amazing, right? That's a bad one. Let's see how that turns out, but that's a really bad one. Nobody's heard that one before. Especially in the wake of Charlie's assassination, our country must have absolutely no tolerance for this radical left violence, extremism, and terror. We're done with the angry mobs, and we're not.
I do think that like
our cities be unsafe.
the other side of this is that like Trump can't have singular focus on any issue that doesn't revolve around himself.
And then we have
Like, no matter how fortuitous this could have been for their ambitions to violate the First Amendment and to further prosecute political enemies of the state, his own ego, his own narcissism is unironically getting in the way of him communicating how serious this is, how important this is. And wait, he actually did mention how a bullet missed him, but it hit Charlie. Is that what he... Oh my God, that was a fucking meme from like the second day. A day after Charlie was shot and assassinated. Someone said it's going to be, y'all are complaining right now, but just wait till he talks about how he dodged a bullet expertly and Charlie actually didn't fucking... Charlie actually didn't. He's going to talk about like skill diff, skill issue.
We took out Pam 1,700
like he just can't even fucking talk about it. Like he can't even talk about this stuff without being like, I do everything so good and Charlie loved me, you know? In order for him to make a coherent case here, he has to literally elevate Charlie's status above himself, and he literally cannot do that.
One
in
arrested
order to
28
successfully
times.
create the martyrdom narrative, he has to make it seem as though Charlie is a more valuable person than he is, and he is physically incapable of doing that.
But we're done with the angry mobs. We're done with it. This is such an unbelievable place right now. You take a look where you can walk down the middle of the street with your wife or your husband. Your children can walk. They can walk alone. It doesn't matter. They can walk anywhere in Washington, and they're safe now. If this were a year ago, they'd have a serious chance of being badly hurt, even killed. They'd come in from Indiana. They'd come in from Iowa. They'd come from Florida to see their nation's capital, and somebody would have to call the parents, I'm sorry, but your son or your daughter's been killed. Not anymore. You hear those sirens going off? That's good. That's a good sound. That means they either got the bad guy or they're going to stop the bad guy. You didn't hear that sound because nobody wanted to do anything.
Yeah, no sirens were ever heard in the nation's capital before I got here and decided policing is back. It's fucking nuts.
They're about 3 miles away. That's great. What a beautiful sound. They're stopping crime. That's what they're doing. So we're done with the voices of fools. They're fools. And death threats, and we're going to make our cities safe. And I thought it was Charlie's, one of his biggest dreams was that he couldn't believe it. Chicago is going to be a great city again. We've already, we sent people in there 6 months ago, and this governor said, well, crime is down. Yeah, that's because we had the FBI in there for 6 months, just preparing it for the bigger surge. And they've done a great job, the cash and the FBI. They've done a great job, and they love doing it, They love being able to do it. They were restricted from doing it. They couldn't do anything. And now they're totally unrestricted. All they have to do is stop crime, and they're doing it. By the way, Memphis, as you know, you heard they went in about a week ago, one of the most dangerous places in the country, really in the world. It's not just the country. They have very few cities that would compare to some of these cities. You go to Afghanistan, you say, oh, that's unsafe. Well, the crime numbers are much better than the crime numbers in places that we have. So Memphis, I understand, is doing unbelievably in 1 week. It's like a different place. And
Jesus
this
Christ.
took 12 days, and then after that, we just perfected it. But after 12 days, we had good safety here. After 1 month, it's like, it's really amazing. And by the way, restaurants are booming. Restaurants are opening up. The big problem we have, you can't get into a restaurant in D.C. anymore. So they're opening up. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's called safety. It's called law enforcement and letting them do their job. And that's why I said last month that I have directed the Attorney General and the Department of Homeland Security to confront the very real threat of left-wing terrorism in our country. It's a real threat. Not when you confront it, it's not, because they're not brave people. In fact, they're cowards. When you confront them, they immediately fold. You have to see them fold. You have to see them crying. They fold. But it includes dismantling the networks that fund them and finance them, and we're finding out
You can't expect them to talk about Charlie Kirk uninterrupted for an hour, chat. Of course the speech is going to fall apart, and he's going to start talking about the Taliban, the left, radical.
With beautiful wood, beautiful cardboard, wood, everything. Everything's perfect paint job, and they're all the same. There are thousands of them. You know that they weren't made in the basement out of love. They were made by anarchists, and in some cases wealthy. I'll probably find some of my nice friends that are up there being so nice to me, especially lately. They're being very nice. But it surprises you who they may be, and you almost wonder why would they do it? But they're hurting our country, and we're really taking it back one by one. If we didn't go into Los Angeles early on in the administration, the commissioner, the chief of police, Los Angeles, said if they didn't go in, we would have lost our city. Now, they already lost 25,000 houses to fire because they wouldn't let the water come in from the Pacific Northwest, which they should have done. And I said, you better do it. They didn't do it, and we had 25,000 homes where they had no water in their sprinklers, they had no water in the fire hydrants. It would have been a different kind of a thing if they did what they were supposed to do. We had to break in. We broke in and had the water come down. They said for the environment, great, they lost 25,000 houses. It's incredible. But the commissioner said without the federal government and President Trump's intervention, we would have lost the entire city. And we have the Olympics going there soon. I got the Olympics. We have the Olympics. We have the World Cup. And we have, most importantly, we have the 250th anniversary of our country. That's going to be most important. And all of these things are happening. And we're going to have safe cities. We're going to have very, very safe cities. So 1 month after Charlie's death, we still feel the terrible shock and the pain of his loss, like just about nobody I can think of. Charlie Kirk was one of a kind. He was unstoppable. And he really was. Boy, when he had an idea in his head, he would call me, sir, please, you haven't done it yet. I said, Charlie, relax. Just relax. He didn't relax. He'd call me the next day again. It got it done. But he was like indomitable and always will be. He's really irreplaceable. Nobody going to replace him. But they're going to do great. But you can't replace that kind of person and that kind of talent, frankly. The word talent is an important word, but that kind of talent. So we hold his memory in our hearts forever. Every single day of this administration, we will continue to carry out the mission for which he lived, and he really did. He lived for this country. He lived for his wife and his family, but he lived for this country too. In Charlie's honor, we will continue like we have been to fight, 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 and to win, win, win. We're going to win so much. So the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a big deal. You have the Congressional Medal of Honor, military, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is civilian. And the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a really big deal. Very few people get it. Very few people, frankly, qualify. It's a decision of the president, but it's a qualification that's a very hard one to get. And I would like to ask, if I might, the military aide to read Charles James Kirk's citation for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Charles J. How do chatters react to this? It's still 10 years into this bullshit.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Charles James
What
Kirk.
do you mean? This is our
Stepping on
president.
behalf
We
of
just have
Charlie,
to deal
Mrs.
with it.
wife,
We have to take it one day
Mrs.
at a
Erica
fucking
Kirk.
time, okay? It is
Charlie
what it
Kirk
is.
was one of the most influential American political figures of his generation. At just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA and grew it into the largest conservative youth organization in the nation. For over a decade, he tirelessly traveled the country leading a movement to restore respect for our founding principles, reawaken our national identity, and inspire a renewed spirit of religious devotion. He was one of the great debaters and communicators of his time. Despite receiving repeated threats, he remained undeterred and modeled courage, logic, humor, and grace to the next generation. On September 10th, 2025, at age 31, Charlie Kirk was assassinated while addressing a group of students. The United States honors him as a martyr for truth and freedom.
Can you take the medal back once it's given to someone? Can this be reversed? No, I don't think so. That would be crazy, though. How does Candace Owens feel about this? Not being a part of this? Well, she decided to go with Israel did it as a route, and she will be permanently outcast for that reason.
In meaningful way, and thank you for making this event a priority.
I do think that there are different groups, different factions within the right now that actually do. There are different factions within the right, some of which actually do think that there was like suspicions, some of which don't like the way that Erica Kirk has handled it. So there is some schisms taking place here. There is some infighting that's going on in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. This should have been a moment of unity for them to get together and say, we are going to attack the left. The left did this. And yet there have been a lot of people who have been fighting one another in the aftermath of this, partially because it's a grift economy that they've cultivated, right? And there are always going to be different factions, different people that look at this and have a higher priority. Some people who fucking hate Israel and want to say that this is Israel. Some people who, dislike the information that has been given on this case so far. And then the misinformation landscape that we already have. It's kind of like with COVID. There were a lot of people who were hawking supplements as an alternative during the COVID era. But then there were also plenty of people who were doing it specifically to come out as like a different voice, an anti-intellectual voice, right? So there are numerous reasons as to why people decide to communicate around this issue in the ways that they do. And it's almost always about clout, and clout means money, obviously, but in some instances, literally to hawk whatever supplements that they want to sell. And in other instances, is just to show themselves as like an earnest voice. Tying this back to Israel, if your highest priority is to say this is Israel's fault, is going to make you look more honest than the rest of these guys. These guys are all fake. These guys are all phony. They're farming Charlie Kirk's death in the wrong direction. What they should be doing instead is farming it in the direction that Israel did it, right? I say let them fight. I think ultimately there are some like interesting there's some interesting information that has been released in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death that like call into question exactly what happened, but that's always a given in high-profile incidents like this, and it's especially more so a given nowadays in this misinformation landscape that we're in. But, you know, let him fight, I guess.
Sacred promises. He used to love to journal about this topic all the time, and with such a heart postured of gratitude. And he believed that liberty was both a right and a responsibility. And he used to say, freedom is the ability to do what is right without fear. And that's how he lived. He was free from fear.
Trump is not
He's free
amused by
from
her. Yes,
compromise.
Trump doesn't like being upstaged.
Free from anything that
And
could
he's currently being
enslave his soul.
upstaged. He doesn't like to sit in the cuck chair as
His
someone
name,
else
Charles,
speaks. We know that
literally
already. That's
means
his like
free
power
man.
play for every fucking world leader.
And that's exactly who my husband was. He was a free man. And from
So-
the time I met him, sitting across from him, being interviewed on politics and philosophy and theology, anything that Charlie loved, any topic he loved. And I just saw the fire in his soul, and there was this divine restlessness within him that came from knowing God placed him on this earth to protect something very, very sacred for all of us. And he never stopped fighting for people to experience freedom. He didn't. Charlie often said that without God, freedom becomes chaos. And he believed liberty could only survive when anchored to truth. And I remember in one of his speeches, he told the audience that the opposite of liberty isn't law. He said it's captivity. And that the freest people in the world are those whose hearts belong to Christ. But what's so powerful is that Charlie had the ability to communicate so brilliantly across all generations. And he reminded us that in a world that tells us freedom is doing whatever you want to do, the real freedom is the power to live freely and to do what is right. And in one of his journal entries, he wrote that he wanted everyone to know that you can't have liberty without moral responsibility. Freedom divorced from faith eventually just destroys itself. And what's so fascinating about all of this is looking back these past 12 years of Turning Point USA and his mission, there's almost this veil of sacredness. Because what I realize is that while he was building an organization, he was also building a movement. One that called people back to God, back to truth, and a movement that was filled with courage. And ironically, for a man who impacted millions, Charlie never desired to be the center of attention. He just wasn't. My husband was not a man of extravagance. He loved simple but deeply meaningful things, truly. He loved his late night walks. He loved buying more books than he could ever read because he felt there was no such thing as a book budget. And he loved being able to read to our kids the same bedtime story on repeat because he knew it was their favorite. But to him, that was
Dude,
special.
it's crazy that he can't even get
He loved
himself
sit
to
in the sun
look
on a Saturday morning
even
with
a
his
little
cup
bit
of
emotional.
coffee, and
He
his
is,
phone
I
was
guess
off and
that
he was
is
honoring the
in
Sabbath.
some ways his
And for
like,
him, it was that moment to catch his breath.
he
and
just
to
can't even fake it, you know?
peace.
And I guess that does communicate earnesty in many
unreachable at the moment.
instances. But if he's trying to
preferred
do
quiet
something
birthdays.
that requires him
That
to,
never stopped.
once
I
again,
told him every single
not
year,
look
I
like
said,
he's a bored toddler,
I love your birthday.
it's not going to happen.
I said, because it's the day
His
that God
default
knew the
position
world
when
would
he's
go
not
another
talking
day
is
without
just,
you.
I'm bored. Why am I not talking?
And so the rhythm of our usual birthday celebration for him was mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip ice cream. He only had it twice a year, on his birthday and 4th of July. It's just
That's a terrible
And,
choice for top ice cream flavor, low key.
after
Like,
that, it was
I know that's not the point
back
here,
to work
but
as usual,
I mean,
last year,
chocolate
his
chip cookie
one
dough is
birthday
right
wish was
there.
To see the Oregon Ducks play.
I
the
know
Ohio
mint
State.
chocolate chip ice cream fans will
And
go
they
crazy
won.
over this,
Oregon won
but
that
I
day.
just don't
It
understand
was by
toothpaste
far one of
flavored
the
ice
most
cream. I
memorable
will
nights
never
of his
get it.
Birthday experience of his life until today.
L opinion? Okay,
And
dude.
so, honestly, President Trump, I have spent 7.5 years trying to find the perfect birthday gift for Charlie. And it's so difficult. And those of you that have spouses or loved ones, you know how difficult it is sometimes to buy a gift for someone that you love, because he wasn't a materialistic man, so that also did not help. But now I can say with confidence, Mr. President, that you have given him the best birthday gift he could ever have. It's such an honor and the recognition of a life lived for defending
I'm now a
freedom.
fucking hater.
And
You
that's
shock
what
your
Charlie
dog.
fought
Okay,
for
dude.
until his last breath. And it was written across his chest. In
All
those
it took
final
was
moments
for me
on
to
one of
fucking do
his
mint
simple
ice cream
t-shirts that
slander,
always
which I
carried
expected
a message
would not be
and this
super
one
popular. It doesn't make any sense
bearing
to
a
me.
single word, freedom.
We now support Charlie Kirk. Fuck
That
you.
was
You
the banner
fuck.
over his life, and that
Okay.
shirt was a declaration. The same declaration he made in every speech, every campus visit, every time he shared the gospel at a church, every sleepless night that he would spend praying for the youth of this nation and planning for the future of our country, and just impressing upon them that when we defend liberty, we defend the soul of our nation.
I think there's better flavors than mint
My
chocolate chip.
husband
I don't
never told
understand
anyone
it.
what to say. He never did. He never told anyone what to say.
I feel like people think it's like a healthy
He just
flavor.
encouraged them to think.
Thoughts on
He would
coffee flavored
encourage
ice
them to
cream?
think
I love coffee
outside
flavored
of the
everything. Dude, look,
traditional
I mean,
political labels. He would want them to think
coffee
in a
flavored
way that was
Zins.
anchored in wisdom and truth. But he would never tell anyone what to say. Charlie wasn't content to simply admire freedom. He wanted to multiply it. He wanted to multiply freedom. He wanted young people to taste it and to understand it and defend it. He wanted them to see that liberty isn't self-indulgence, it's self-governance under God. He wanted them to see that. And every day I'd see him getting ready for work. He'd put on his cross necklace, he'd put his ring on his finger. And the boldness in his demeanor was always fearlessness. He wasn't afraid. He was never afraid. In his daily actions, whether in office or on campus or at a church, it was always without fear. That was his creed. That is how he lived out every single day. He didn't fear being slandered. He did not. He didn't fear losing friends, I can tell you that. He didn't. He didn't care. He stood for truth and stood for freedom, and he did not, everything else was just noise to him. And it's because his confidence in Christ was absolute. That's why. There was no limit to what he would have sacrificed to defend freedom for all. And if the moment had come, he probably would have run for president, but not out of ambition. He would only have done it if that was something that he believed that his country needed from a servant's heart standpoint. And Charlie lived only 31 short years. No, he's 32, but on this side of heaven, but he lived. He lived every single second he lived. He filled every single day with purpose, and he fought for truth when it was unpopular. And he stood for God when it was costly, but that's what we're called to do. Surprisingly enough, he did pray for his enemies, which is very hard, but he did. He did. He did. No one else, I mean, I saw him do it. No, he never did it in front of anyone else, but I can attest to that. But he also loved people when it was inconvenient. And he ran his race with endurance, and he kept the faith. And now he wears the crown of a righteous martyr. And for me and for our children, the truth really steadies our grief, because Heaven gained what earth could no longer contain. A free man made fully free.
Gossip with me. Does this sound sincere to you? I can't hear anything.
To all watching, this is
When I hear like people talk about religion like this,
a commissioning.
I check out so hard, because for me it's like so outside of my consideration. I just like I'm working through it. I'm listening to what she has to say. But because it's so outside of my understanding of the world and my analysis of how things happen in the world, that like
And remember
it
that
genuinely,
while freedom
like I'm like, yeah, it's great.
in this
If it
country,
helps you
each of
go
us must
through
be
your
essential
day to day,
stewards.
I'm with there. I'm right there with you. Okay. It's great. It's fantastic.
Again,
But
I'm letting
like,
work through my husband,
I
and
just
intend
can't.
to see it through.
I'm like Trump, having a hard time paying
It's in our hands
attention.
now. It's in mine. It's in yours. It's in all of yours.
So I'm the
It's
worst
yours.
person to ask. As a practicing Catholic, yeah, this shit is sincere as fuck. Yeah, I can
And before
I can see
close,
this being like I
share
mean,
with you
even
that
the
I
fact that
asked
she
our
said
daughter
like I forgive
what
the
she'd
shooter
like
of
to
Charlie
say to
Kirk,
Daddy.
like that in and of itself seemingly was like some real Christian shit, right? Like I think. And even
said-
even the sincere stuff that she is,
Happy birthday, Daddy. I want to give you a stuffed animal.
oh no.
I want you to eat a cupcake with ice cream. And I want you to go have a birthday surprise. I love you, is what she said. And while our son is precious, he can't yet speak. In classic Kirk family fashion, his actions spoke louder than his words. And his gift to you, Charlie, and myself for that matter, was deciding to become the man of the house and be fully potty trained at 16 months. But Charlie, baby, I know that you're celebrating in heaven today, but gosh, I miss you. We miss you. And we love you, and we promise we'll make you proud. And Charlie's life was proof that freedom is not a theory, it's a testimony. He showed us that liberty begins not in the halls of power, but in the man of a heart surrendered to God. And so today, as we honor Charlie with this incredible Presidential Medal of Freedom on his birthday, I stand here with tears and just a humbled heart and spirit, because his story reminds us all that to live free is the greatest gift, but to die free is the greatest victory. Happy birthday, my Charlie. Happy Freedom Day. God bless you.
I do have a hard time coming to terms with the fact that all of this is still being done for a podcaster. Knowing full well that yeah, this is the other side of the story, by the way. This is something that I've seen as well. A lot of like right-wingers are dunking on Erica Kirk. She's getting so much shit on Insta, even from fans. They feel like it's a grift, and they're mad about the cover up, and they feel like she's being blasphemous. Like they straight up think that like either she's not abiding by like religious doctrine. There's some people who are mad that like they suspect her of like converting Charlie to Catholicism. There's like a million different reasons, and they are very mad. Like right-wingers have been yelling at her nonstop. I think partially this goes back to what I was talking about, which is that like everyone has a lot of unrestrained anger with no outlet, with no clear, decipherable, discernible movement, with no outlet whatsoever. And they are looking for like a pressure valve, but there is none. And things are only getting worse and worse. Material conditions are only worsening. And therefore, they just keep lashing out. And in some instances, they even lash out at their own allies. And I think that's what's going on here. There's no targets. So they just target whoever the fuck is in their, whoever the fuck they consider to be accessible. But anyway,